Hi guys, and welcome back to another Borkino video. Today's video is dedicated to why I switched to physical attack and running only physical attack weapons. So let's jump right into it. And before I jump into the video, I have to say, I saw Tachi's video regarding the salad grid, and I completely agree with all of his points. Alright, so let's jump into mine. So the reason why I switched into pretty much, the physical attack build, because if I go into gear, and I go specifically into my Kalo set, I'm going to talk about a couple weapons that I have. Now, a couple of weapons that I have, which are easier to obtain than usual, are the Sword of Humility, Sword of Bondage right here, Sword of Love and Hate, which you could have gotten from a paid pack, right? I know it's not easy to acquire, but it was guaranteed. And the Swordsmith Spellbook sword, this one right here. So, those four swords were actually easy to acquire. Like, technically there was no RNG involved. It was just a matter of like, do I have the resources to pretty much, bring them together? Because of that, you'll also notice on my left hand side that Sword of Bondage, Spellbook Sword have high attack, and then Sword of Love and Hate has decent attack with, Sword of Humility. Now, this goes on to, well, it's nice that they have high stats, but that still doesn't explain like why you switched into them. Mainly because they were easy to access, right? And next thing has to do with the fact that I want my skills to match the attack, the stat that I main. So by skills matching the attack that I main, swords leverage physical attack, physical damage. So I should leverage my high physical stat. So I need high physical attack or high damage on my swords. And this turns into why I use hammers. And hammers provide, pretty decent physical attack, right? For example, this Lord's Hammer. So if I filter this, take out blades, put in hammers, you can see here, like, Lord's Hammers right here, the hammer that we just got from Three Little Pigs banner, Turbulent Maces here. So essentially what I'm trying to show is that weapons, I wanted to build a grid where my skills could be maximized with my stats. Because at the end of the day, you can totally run Dauntless Courage and run Mixed Grid. You can pretty much make any grid work. I want to let you know that. But I wanted to focus on a specific grid, particularly physical, so I can leverage the skills that I have so that I deal more damage, particularly in the physical department. And the reason why is because if I try to make a salad grid, I can't invest enough resources into a bunch of different weapons. And the thing is when I go physical main, I can touch the sword damage and the hammer damage, right? The hammer damage like really does well in Coliseum because AoE does very well in Coliseum. Now the next reason why I switched to this build, because I can cover the sword and spear demon, and you know that there's a hammer and bow demon. I can cover both of the vanguard, demons. And essentially what I want to do is I'm running a mixed like hammer sword grid to maximize my physical damage, and eventually I'll turn it to like an only sword deck and only hammer deck, and I'll have both of those half nightmares when, switching is available and all that other stuff. Because I want my physical attack to be my main, right? And also, this jumps into my next point on why I switched to physical, is because my guild mains physical, like attack, physical defense, debuff, stuff like that, right? And because of that, also note that physical attack buffs are more available right now. Physical defense down is more available for swords as well. So because those things are more available, I want to build my grid around my guild. So it's not a matter of like I'm doing this for damage, I'm doing this for my guild as well. So it's a combination of, my swords and hammer damage syncing together, my skill levels syncing together. I have a plan so that my half nightmares in the future sync together when I switch sets. I also have a plan that my guild will sync together, right? It's a combination of things so that eventually I don't have to try to manipulate my stats so that I do more damage on a mixed grid. Plus, a mixed grid is like difficult for your sorks and minstrels to pretty much like help you, because what happens is when your sorks and minstrels try to buff you and they only have magical attack, for example, then their magical attack will deal more buffs, but then the physical oriented people won't get as many buffs, so this forces your sorks and minstrels to wail. So obviously, you can run a mixed grid and make it work. It's just that your damage it will be different, right? It will be different, and this is totally opinionated is what I'm trying to tell you, because you can see here that my decisions are based off of guild decisions and what we want for the future. It's not just that I'm switching to physical grid for the sake of switching to physical grid. Also note that I had a lot easier access to physical oriented weapons because of swords, and because I got lucky on my hammer pulls, right? There's actually a limited amount of hammers, there's actually not that many, but just note that your grid is based off of RNG and what's going to be available to you. And this goes to my last point on why did I switch from a magic paladin oriented grid, because note that actually a lot of spears were given to us at the beginning of the game. The snowflake spear, technically this spear, the gluttonous scythe. There were a couple of spears that were given to us, so it looked like paladin was easier to build. The reason why I switched off that was because I didn't see like the spear banners, and by the time the spear banners came out, it was already too late for me. I had way too many physical attack weapons. My guild was spec to physical, so it's not a matter of like paladins didn't like work out for me. Pretty much RNG decided that, hey, this is the weapon, this is like what you have the most of, so take advantage of the things that you have the most of. All right, it was completely like based off of RNG, based off of the pulls, because I never got lucky on my spear pulls. I just kept getting lucky on like pulling swords and pulling hammers. So that's what ended up being the case for me, and it also ended up being the case for the guild, right? So in the end, you can see that my build is particularly based off of the pulls that I had, and based off of the guild pulls, and based off of demons. All right, so that's it for this video. Like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Twitch, follow me on Twitter, and hopefully this explained a few things. I'll see you in the next one.